Welcome to Lesson 4, Issues. Now, we talked about how trauma during utero and our first year of life can hinder the development of the first chakra. As we discussed in the overview, there are a myriad of contributing factors that can impede the health of the first chakra. Social conditioning, trauma, beliefs, and coping mechanisms, to name a few. In this lesson, we will explore the various issues that arise when out of balance, and we will explore specifically trust, connection with the body, grounding, boundaries, and fear. So let's get started. As you can see, there are many issues that arise within the first chakra: survival, safety, foundation, roots, the body, nourishment, grounding, trust, health, home, family, finances and prosperity, and poor boundaries. Now, this list might look scarily familiar. Maybe you don't feel like you have solid footing anywhere in the world. Maybe you struggle with health issues, financial insecurity, family drama, trust issues. Maybe you don't feel grounded or connected in your body. Maybe you really struggle with body image. And maybe you have a very complicated relationship with food. Now again, there is a lot of ground to cover here, but because this course is specifically focused on healing your relationship with food and your body, we will touch upon the ones that I find come up most frequently with my clients. Let's start with trust. So trust is defined in Webster's dictionary as a firm belief in the character, strength, or truth of someone or something. I like to also think of trust as believing that that person, thing, or belief will have my best interest at heart and hopefully my safety. With that in mind, let me know if any of this rings true. You struggle to trust others, your body, yourself, and your team. If you're working with a team such as a doctor, therapist, dietitian, psychiatrist, maybe you don't 100% trust what they say, even when it's grounded in facts. You hear about intuitive eating and body acceptance, but you don't trust that you can do it. You know dieting keeps you on the hamster wheel, but you don't trust trying another way. You don't trust that your body will know how to process eating in a normalized manner. You don't trust when your body tells you it needs to rest or when it's hungry. You struggle to make decisions because you don't trust yourself. Any of this ringing true? I know I used to believe many of these statements, and I hear it constantly from my clients. Lack of trust is a clear indicator of first chakra wounds. What I love about this work is it's a two-way street. It can be quite hard to just begin to trust, but doing the practices might allow a sense of trust to become more and more accessible as your chakra begins to heal. Once you're able to trust more, that in return strengthens your first chakra, and thus a once negative feedback loop becomes a positive, reinforcing feedback loop. Disordered eating and eating disorders are a hallmark sign of a blocked root chakra. To be disconnected from your Muladhara chakra is to be disconnected from your body and vice versa. Our body's home to our spirit and our soul. It is our vehicle through this life. Nourishing the body is a basic need. So let's take a closer look at our basic needs. This is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Essentially, it is the belief that in order to find self-actualization, one must obtain the other more basic needs. Each need rests upon the lower need. Our physiological needs being first and foremost before any other need can be satisfied. So listed in order, you need to have your physiological needs met first, then the need to feel safe, then to feel as though you belong. Next is having a healthy self-esteem, and finally, self-actualization. And again, what we need first and foremost are our physiological needs to be met. And yes, food and water are two of those needs. And you'll notice that in this hierarchy, they are needed to feel safe. Just as in our first chakra, nourishment is part of a healthy first chakra, which when balanced, allows for a sense of safety. So if you struggle to trust your body and therefore nourish it with respect, undereating, overeating, all of the above, it might mean that your first chakra needs some TLC, as does your body. We spoke about trust already, and especially in regards to trusting the body. I will say it can get quite complicated if you also have health issues that make it harder to trust your body. That is outside the scope of this course, but I do want to take the time to validate that for anyone out there that is struggling with chronic pain, PCOS, diabetes, MS, cancer, psoriasis. There's an extensive list, and I can't cover them all, but I just want to take the time to honor the fact that it does make it harder to trust the body. Now, this also comes back to why healing and recovery will look very different for each person, and your privileges in this lifetime will impact that. It is important to remember that trust is a two-way street in any relationship, and that goes for your body. Your body also needs to trust you just as much as you need to trust it. If you are starving the body, it does not trust that it will be adequately nourished and will adjust accordingly. For example, a few ways the body does this is by slowing down metabolism and adjusting the hormones that regulate our appetite and our satiety. And this is because the body is doing everything it can to protect you. The body doesn't know that you're dieting. It believes that you are in the middle of a famine, right? It thinks that you're starving because there is a lack of food. Overloading the system with more food than it can handle at one time is also not treating the body with respect. Listening to the body, hearing its needs, responding to its needs is respecting it. Allowing your body to be the size it is biologically programmed to be in your DNA is respecting it. Allowing your body to rest and recharge is respecting it. Connecting with our body can feel unsafe because many of us do not know how to do it in a way that feels safe. Connecting with the body is so powerful that some trauma work is specifically done through the body, such as somatic experiencing. We hold undigested trauma and emotions in our body. Connecting to the body can be really hard if that means connecting with that trauma and those emotions. Depending on your history, much of this work would be very, very beneficial to do with a qualified therapist. One way to connect with the body and the earth in a way that might feel accessible is to feel your feet on the ground. While standing, sitting down, or even lying down with the soles of your feet on the ground, just notice the connection. Be present to the connection of your feet with the ground. It's that simple. And you might find this extremely challenging if you're disconnected from the body or if you're not used to feeling grounded. We will explore this in the yoga practice included in the module. We just talked about feeling our feet on the ground as a way to connect with the body. This is also one of the most popular techniques for grounding as well. Why? Because to be grounded is to be in your body, and to be in your body is to be grounded. When we don't feel grounded, we are often lost in a flurry of thoughts without any containment. Our body is our source of containment whenever we need it. It is our physical boundary in this world. To not be grounded often means we struggle with boundaries. And now notice if that statement resonated at all for you. Do you struggle with feeling grounded and with holding boundaries? Both provide a sense of containment. So not having access to either can feel very unsafe and unstable. Now, if you remember, feeling unsafe and unstable is also a sign of a blocked first chakra. See how they are connected? So grounding is to be in your body, to be present, to be connected, to have boundaries, and to have containment. And this is my own interpretation, and as always, I invite you to define what grounding means for you. And also know it is very fluid. For me, grounding used to just mean connected to the earth. It developed as I did. And that's a fundamental point of grounding. It is cumulative. I remember the first time someone said, feel your feet on the ground. It was so frustrating because it was so hard and I didn't know if I was quote unquote doing it right. It's so important to be patient and compassionate with yourself in this work. You are exactly where you need to be right now, and you will always be growing and evolving. Trusting in that can be a very powerful way to soften any perfectionism around self-development work. It's also another way to build your sense of trust. Grounding also helps to bring a stillness to promote clarity. As we get into our bodies, we're less caught up in our thoughts. It creates some distance from the thoughts, and we can see things clearly and thus respond rather than react. For example, let's say you have an urge to skip a meal or binge or run 10 miles. If you can take a moment to pause, find your grounding, maybe you can see that urge as a message from your body and your mind that you're feeling overwhelmed and that maybe you need to take a day off and rest. Rather than react to it and go into autopilot, you can take a step back, see the urge with some clarity, and respond to it by satisfying the actual need that is driving that urge. The need isn't to restrict or binge or run 10 miles. It is that I'm feeling overwhelmed and I need to rest. And now this was just an example. Your work will be to find your particular need in that moment. So taking the time to ground, take a beat, and understand, what is my need in this moment? What is my body and mind telling me that I need? And rather than responding or reacting on autopilot and restricting or binging or running 10 miles, can you understand what your need is and respond to it? Now again, that is much harder to do in practice. So as always, be patient and compassionate with yourself. Maybe you just work on noticing and taking a beat. And then maybe you take a beat and then you ground yourself. And then maybe after time, you notice it, you take a beat, you ground, and then you understand what the need is. So again, this work is cumulative and takes time. So maybe your first step is just noticing that that thought is coming up and taking a beat. And maybe you just start there. Grounding allows us to be present. It offers containment, enables us to hold boundaries, to find a sense of stability, and to find clarity, which allows us to respond rather than react. Now that we know the benefits of grounding, let's talk about a few grounding techniques. Eating. Yes, eating is grounding. This actually comes from Ayurveda, which is a sister science of yoga. Ayurveda translates into science of life or knowledge of life. And one of the aspects of Ayurveda is that eating can be very grounding. Eating is putting earth into your body. It is grounding. I want to give a little bit of space for that statement to sink in and allow for recognition and compassion for anyone out there listening that uses food to deal with uncomfortable emotions like anxiety or loneliness. I like the visual of the head as a balloon, and the more and more the thoughts and feelings cause the head to inflate as your body lifts up off of the ground. The food is adding earth and bringing the body back to the ground. I'm going to repeat it. Eating is grounding. It adds earth to our system. It connects us, whether we realize it or not, to our body. It causes the body to then work to process and digest and distribute nutrients. So from this perspective, I hope that you can have some compassion for yourself. If you don't eat enough, is that disconnecting you from your body? And if you tend to overeat, are you doing that in a way to ground yourself? If you restrict and overeat, are you going back and forth between disconnection and grounding? And just explore that idea for yourself. I invite you to journal about it, draw about it, or talk about it with a friend or a therapist or your dietitian. Feeling your feet on the ground. It is as simple as that. It sometimes feels like you're not doing anything, which I think if you tend to overthink like I do, you question if you're doing it right. I personally like to press my feet into the ground on my breath. So what I do is I press my feet into the ground on the exhale. I inhale, release. Exhale, press your feet into the ground. Inhale, release. And then I like to hold it, right? So practicing that for a few rounds and then just breathing, pressing the feet into the ground. To help this, I also like to add some weight to the top of my thighs to reinforce that connection. So if you practice yoga and have props, using a sandbag, using a weighted blanket, a pet, anything with some weight to it, if you place it on top of your thighs, it presses your feet naturally into the ground. And I like this method too because when you press your feet into the ground, you'll notice a tension or gripping begins to develop in the legs. When you simply add the weight on top of your thighs, you can kind of surrender into it without forcing it. So again, you can try it different ways. You can actively press your feet into the ground, or you can try to place something with some weight on top of your thighs to reinforce that connection. Standing with your feet on the earth, so in soil, on the grass, can be very powerful. It's actually a technique called grounding, and it connects you with the ionosphere of the earth to create a resonance between your vibration and the earth's vibration. What's cool about it is that it can also allow for excess energy to discharge into the earth. It's a lovely way to begin to learn how to accept support and ask for help if that's otherwise hard for you to do. Foot massages or rolling your feet out with a foot roller or a ball is fantastic. If you struggle to feel your feet on the ground, this is a great technique. You begin to break up the fascia, and it really allows for a sense of connection to the ground. I actually did this at a workshop in Kripalu many years ago, and it was the first time that I really understood the concept of feeling my feet on the ground and felt grounded. So if you struggle to find that connection of your feet to the ground, I highly recommend this practice. You can use a yoga ball, a lacrosse ball, a tennis ball. You don't have to buy anything fancy. A tennis ball works perfectly. Reflexology works with the feet, and you can connect with your entire body through various points in the feet. So this is a great way of connecting to your body if you feel like actually connecting to your entire physical body or having your body touched feels way too challenging. Movement that connects you to the earth. So any activities like walking, running, dancing, yoga, movement that gets you into your body and connects you to the earth. Additionally, movement that engages and energizes the legs and the feet, right? Because they're connected to the first chakra. Now, I do want to make one note with this technique. If you have a complicated relationship with movement, this may not be the technique that you gravitate to first for grounding. Working with clay or soil is a great way to ground. You're using the body to work and connect with the earth. So working with polymer clay, taking a pottery class, a clay building class is a great way to connect with earth, especially if connecting with your physical body doesn't feel accessible for you right now. Massage is a great way to feel grounded. Just like the foot massage, it helps break up the fascia. It also allows you to feel sensation in your body and connect to it. A weighted blanket is a great way to provide some grounding. And it doesn't have to be a weighted blanket per se. Anything that can add some weight. So a heavy blanket, a pet, a partner, etc. And boundaries. We spoke about the body being a physical boundary, but let's talk about other boundaries because oftentimes one has poor boundaries when the first chakra is out of balance. Your first chakra allows you to stand your ground, and it's really hard to form boundaries if you can't stand your ground. And boundaries are also part of understanding your needs and communicating them. A boundary ensures that you and your needs are being taken care of. Some examples might include not looking at Instagram while eating, telling your friends to not talk about their latest diet, saying no to commitments when you don't have the bandwidth, not answering work emails after work or on weekends. So these are just some examples of boundaries that people might have in their lives. And being grounded is also a really important factor in creating and holding boundaries. So notice for yourself, do you have boundaries with others and with yourself? If you do, great. Now ask yourself, do you hold these boundaries? Creating boundaries and holding boundaries are two very different things. So if you tell your friends to stop talking about their diets and they continue to do so, how do you respond? Do you foster anger and resentment and just not say anything? Do you remind them of your wishes and maybe explain why this is important to you? Do you just stop seeing them to protect your needs? To explore your relationship with boundaries in your life, I invite you to explore them more in the workbook included in this module. Fear. We talked about various issues that might arise when the first chakra is blocked, and I want to talk about one more way of knowing, and that is fear. Fear, like food, is not inherently good or bad. It is our relationship to it that labels how we feel about it. Some people are paralyzed by fear. For some, fear is an ally guiding them as to where to focus their energy. Fear is a normal, quote unquote, normal emotion to feel. But if one has a crippling amount of fear, it can signify a wounded first chakra. Our first chakra deals with safety, and when we don't feel safe, we are fearful. Our first chakra is all about proper nourishment for the body. When the body is not properly nourished, the body has a sympathetic nervous system response. So let's take a minute to talk about the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is usually referred to as our fight or flight system. We now know that one can fawn, freeze, fight, or flight. And the sympathetic nervous system, very simply explained, prepares the body for stress. Now, the parasympathetic nervous system comes in after a stressful situation. This is our rest and digest system. It returns the body to the state prior to the stressor. Once the stressor has ended, ideally, the parasympathetic nervous system comes back online. You can see the body returns to its state prior to the stressful event. So you can see one is not better than the other. We need the sympathetic system with the parasympathetic nervous system to maintain balance. The issue is that so many times people stay in that sympathetic nervous system response, and that is when one is in chronic stress. So the nervous system solely relies on glucose. Glucose comes from carbohydrates. So if the body isn't being properly nourished, the body goes into a sympathetic nervous system response because it doesn't even have the fuel to run efficiently, right? It thinks that it's in a famine and it's stressed. The brain also exclusively runs on glucose, which again comes from, yes, carbohydrates. So a starved brain also leads to a deeper sense of fear and anxiety directly through the nervous system. I want to make one final note as well. So not only does not nourishing ourselves properly activate that sympathetic nervous system, putting us in a stress response, not having the proper building blocks, food, nutrients, also prevents the body from being able to make neurotransmitters like serotonin, which helps to regulate your mood, and dopamine, which helps to provide a sense of calm. So I wanted to take the time to briefly connect these 2 points for you so that you can see that this work, though thousands of years old, aligns with the current science. If you're not properly nourished, that will increase your anxiety, increase your sense of fear, and put the body in a stress response. And this brings us to the end of this lesson. We talked about the issues that arise with the first chakra, and we explored trust, connection with the body, grounding, boundaries, and fear. In the next lesson, we will take a deeper dive into a first chakra that is out of balance, and we'll learn how to identify if it is excessive, deficient, or both. I'll see you there.